So today I'm here with Anthony Hujik and Denise Cromwell from Rudolph Libbe. We're going to talk about project controls, we're going to talk about project costs, and we're going to talk about real-world use cases of how to use project controls on your construction projects. I'm very excited for this podcast today.
I'm Anthony Hujik. I'm with Rudolph Libbe. I've been here 22 years, starting as a co-op when I was in college. I worked my way up as a project engineer to project manager, and then eventually now the project controls manager.
My name is Denise Cromwell. I just retired as the project cost accounting manager at Rudolph Libbe after 30 years. Before that, I was a cost accountant with a heavy highway contractor, Fort Defiance Construction. They are no longer in business. For 12 years.
When you started in your career, what did project controls, project cost accounting look like? And how has that kind of evolved over time?
When I first started here, it was a very homegrown system. The IT department consisted of, I think, 2 people. They developed the job cost system. It was not any purchased system. We did have budgets at the time that we entered in the system, but everything was done manually. Contracts and change orders were all done through Word and then manually entered into the job cost system. The project controls personnel actually went out to job sites to collect timesheets and deliver those to payroll. Quantities were entered through the same process. They would go out to the job sites and get the quantities and have them manually entered. Everything, that was long before spreadsheets, it was long before email, so everything was done at a very manual process. And so obviously email came along, Excel came along, Outlook came along, and so that changed dramatically how we tracked costs. Project managers would use Excel to track change orders, whether they were signed or not, and again, that was all manually entered. We had a new system that came in that replaced the old Rudolph Libbe system, and it was called IMS through Computer Guidance Corporation, which transformed our systems dramatically.
And that transformation went from manual entry into what? How did that kind of transform how project costs was being accounted for?
So we would enter budgets directly into the system. Change orders were, even though they were still manually entered through Word, we had a whole department that did just that. They would track all the owner change orders and vendor change orders and contracts manually, and keyed into the system, but they were tracked at a much higher level. We didn't have committed costs back in the beginning. It was just whatever actual cost was versus your budget. And through the new system, we were able to track committed costs, so you could always see where your actual was versus your committed cost.
What were the biggest headaches when it came to project cost accounting that people just kind of accepted as this is just the way it is? And expanding on that, like those pain points, how did those drive innovation and transformation?
I would say there was some initial pushback from superintendents because anything new with any system, getting them to report quantities on a timely basis and understanding man hours and the budgeted man hours and where those came from and how they were estimated, as opposed to maybe you had a different crew that was assigned to that as opposed to what was in the estimate. And so there was some heartache there when the superintendent thought they had more man hours to perform a task, and in their case they had a more expensive crew. They would be confused as to why, well, you told me I had so many man hours left. What do you mean I'm out of man hours now? And so it was that kind of learning curve to new systems. Mm-hmm. That's probably the biggest struggle.
How did you see field teams address that? And what was your kind of part in addressing that?
It was education. We would have sessions with superintendents to explain how the information was entered and the detail behind the estimate and how many man hours, etc. We actually had to adjust the job cost system it started out budgeted hours minus actual hours equals what you have left, where it became budgeted hours minus projected hours are what you have left. And so it was that introduction that really it was a game changer for the field.
Well, how is that a game changer?
What I've seen is, I think Denise touched on early on, we grew as a company. So I think we see that even still today, we grow as a company. So, executive leadership understands that and say, hey, well, we need to get better at what we do. We've been doing this way for 60 some years now, but maybe we need to change. So I think it usually comes, what I have seen, it comes from A little bit of technology, because there's new technology out there every day, right? But it isn't usually, hey, let's go chase this shiny new object, right? It's kind of a wait and see approach of how will that benefit us? Will it make us more efficient? Especially right now in today's market, everyone knows there's a labor shortage. It's not just trade labor, it's PMs, PEs, superintendents. So it's looking at that. So some of it is technology driven, but I think a lot of it is leadership driven from growth, I think, is what I've seen.
So growth is the primary driver to making organizational changes.
Right, I think so.
But do you think that the leadership sees the technology coming and then maybe is making some decisions about, yeah, we really should make this shift? Or have you seen it more of it really is executive leadership driving change and innovation?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the executive leadership team sees, they're aware of the technology out there, like AI. AI is happening, everyone's talking about AI, so there's a lot of how can this benefit us as a company, organization? It's not every solution is a one-size-fits-all solution, so how would that best, even though this company is using this technology, is that a benefit to us? How can it benefit us?
Because it's more actual. It's not, I had 100 hours to produce this, but now my project manager is saying, I need 150. So knowing that as you're producing and doing the work was a huge help.
Right.
Yeah.
Made room for adjustments.
Exactly.
Gave time for adjustments.
Exactly.
Looking back at over time and the early versions and how it kind of transformed, when did blind spots show up? How did they present themselves? And what I kind of mean by that is usually organizations don't change until there's pain, right? Something happened that caused X policy or X procedure to be put in place. As you think back over your career, what kind of pops out for you when I ask that question?
I would say the introduction of project management software. Before, it was, as I said, it was a very manual process. We received a Timberline estimate, an estimate, wasn't even Timberline at the beginning, which we'd enter in the system, and then whatever you spent is what you spent. With the project management system, we were able to track committed costs versus actual costs, which was new at the time. And it gave them an opportunity to project their costs more readily.
And in that process of using the project management system, what drove that? What drove that organizationally that somebody was like, no, we really do need to use this?
I think it was just the growth of the company. When I first started, we made X amount of sales every year, and that just kept growing and growing and growing. And management decided we need to track our costs better. We need something to track change orders better, RFIs better, all those things, which were all done. This project manager does it in Excel, this project manager does it somewhere else, in a log somewhere that nobody else can see. And so it was, at that time, the management said, we need to have more visibility. We need to be able to, if Tony leaves the company and he's got all these logs somewhere else that nobody can see, that's not a good thing. So we purchased a Primavera product called Contract Manager, which was a great product. There was still a lot of manual entry, and the integrations were not nearly as detailed as they are today in a different system. But it was just the growth of the company that said we need to do better.
Yeah, that is something that I often talk to contractors about. You would be amazed at the large organizations out there that don't have a PMIS system, and they have a system, but actually having a centralized database in which all of that information is stored. I can't express the value in that. It comes so much better from people who lived it, right? Mm-hmm. So after you saw that PMIS system up and running, what were the initial benefits?
The initial benefits were we weren't doing contracts and change orders in Word anymore. We were doing them in the project management system. Reporting was much quicker. Information was easily accessible by anybody on the team, anybody in the company for that matter.
Right. And the project management software really does give that level of transparency and accessibility, and it allows you to set permissions and what people are allowed to do in it and not do in it, so you can begin to trust the data. Right? And as teams started to trust the data, I would imagine adoption was much easier.
Yes.
Came through much easier.